right. So on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast, we have the golden one, Cassandra Golden. How are you, ma'am?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing good. Just can't complain, just hanging on, and it's Thursday, so we're just gonna embrace Thursday night and then go into the weekend.
Exactly. I'm ready for the weekend, that's for sure.
Me too, definitely.
Yeah.
So we're gonna start by I'm gonna start by asking you what I ask all of my guests, and that's when did you fall in love with wrestling?
Well, I fell in love when I was younger. I wasn't a fan exactly like at the beginning.
Hmm.
Wrestling was always my sister and my dad's kind of bonding experience until I intruded on it. So it definitely just is ever since I was young, I watched the Royal Rumble, and then that's really was my real introduction to wrestling to where I just actually sat down and watched it, and I was like, oh man, this is amazing.
Hmm. So that's basically how it started. You kind of just looped yourself into what your dad and your sister were doing.
Right, exactly. I
Okay.
intruded. And like they stopped watching it after a while, but I still loved it. Of course, I still loved it ever since.
That's funny because it's kind of like how it was with my sister. Like she started watching it. She was born like a whole lot later. She's 8 years younger than me. So she would watch it with me and my dad. But then the older she got, the more she kind of got out of it. But you
Oh yeah.
know, people like some people just stick to it and then other people's, just don't. But it's okay though, because I mean, it's whatever.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, sometimes people grow out of cartoons, other people grow out of different shows and they get into other things. So it's not a problem. But
Right.
sometimes I do wish you was still watching it though.
It'd be nice to, just talk to you, like have that bond. Yeah, I understand that. Sometimes I want to talk to my sister about like wrestling and she doesn't like get it. So but it's always interesting to see like her reaction. She's seen two of my shows. She's been there with me. And it's
Hmm.
always so cool to like see her reaction and see like her opinion of everything because she's kind of like new, fresh eyes. So she's seeing everything, you giving me her reaction, and it's it's funny.
Yeah, and then for me, it's sort of like my sister still knows enough to still, have a conversation about it. So I actually sent her pictures from Alabama Comic Con where it was me and Booker T. And she was
Uh-huh.
just like, "Oh my God, is that Booker T?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she was like, "Oh."
That's cool.
So she still knows enough, but not so much so to the point to where it's everything about the present that she knows.
Yeah,
But I
sense.
can still share stuff with her, so it's still cool though.
Right, yeah.
Shout out to the sisters in our
Right,
lives.
exactly. The younger sisters. My sister's younger too.
Oh yes, gotta love
Yeah,
them. Gotta love them.
sometimes. I'm just kidding. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah, they get on our nerves, but we love them anyway.
Right,
It's
love them
okay.
anyway.
Yes. So when did you exactly decide to pursue it as a career?
I would say I was definitely in college when I was younger. Something like this to me didn't seem like it could be real to me.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of just felt like a dream, like a fantasy. And I'm like kind of a realistic person. So like in my head, that's not something that I thought that I could realistically do
Mm-hmm.
until I was in college. I would say I was a junior going to senior year. And I was like, man, I really want to look up some schools. I couldn't find anything near me at that time. I went to school in Memphis. I couldn't find anything near me at that time. So I was like, when I graduate, I'm gonna put my everything in it. I'm gonna go. I'm gonna at least try. I got a degree in business, specializing in accounting. So like I can do that any old time. I can be in my 60s, 70s doing accounting, whatever. But I need to do this now. Like I have to do this now. So whenever I graduated, that's when I started my journey to be a pro wrestler.
So you started with wrestling like after college.
Yes, is when I first started training after college.
Wow, that's interesting. And then a degree in business too.
Yeah.
Like, man. Like it's like to go from business to wrestling is so funny. It's like the two kind of go together,
Yeah.
to a certain extent, but then at the same time they're still so vastly different too. So it's just that's really interesting.
Yeah, everybody is really surprised because business definitely does seem, like I said, I'm more of like a realistic person.
Mhm.
Business does, or accounting seems more like my speed. So like my family was also surprised and startled when others like, oh, this is what you want to do. I was like, yeah, of course, this is what I want to do.
Okay, and they were supportive of that.
Oh yes, very supportive, especially my mom. She was extremely supportive, and my sister and my cousin Maddie, they were extremely supportive. Everybody else was too. Everybody else though was like more like surprised than anything, but they were definitely like supportive. They always ask me about it, so they think it's really cool that I'm doing it. They were just shocked more than anything because it
Mm-hmm.
seems so outside of like my personality. But everybody I would say was really supportive. I never really had anybody try to down talk it or anything to me before, so I'm lucky in that regard anyway.
Yeah, that's really good. I'm glad that they actually do support you. See, with my family, I told my mom and my dad, and they were cool about it. But as far as the rest of my family, it's like they see it kind of like in passing, because I have lots of family all over the country and not necessarily just in Alabama. So
Hmm.
it's just like there's only so much that they see on social media. So I
Right,
can only imagine how it's going to be at Thanksgiving or Christmas where I tell them, "So, Stephanie, what you been up to?"
right,
Uh It's
right,
gonna be hilarious. I
right.
cannot wait.
This is
It's gonna be
everybody's
so funny.
reactions. Yeah, that's gonna be funny.
Oh my god, yeah. Podcasting, commentating, that kind of stuff. That's
Right.
gonna be funny. So who exactly did you train with, and what were some of the greatest lessons that you learned during your training?
Well, I first started with training with Lance Storm. Once I trained with him, that's a 3 month program. I came back to Arkansas. I
Mhm.
actually took quite a bit of time off, but then I started back up. I started wrestling with Action Jackson or Jonathan Holt in Arkansas. He's a great trainer around there. So if you're looking for wrestling training in Arkansas, Central Arkansas, you should hit him up. And then I moved to Atlanta, Georgia, about 2 years ago, and to train at the Power Factory and now the Nightmare Factory.
Okay. And what would you say were some of the greatest lessons that you learned during that time?
Definitely. Well, one is going to be more like, I guess, wrestling related. Use my size. I'm a lot bigger than the girls that I wrestle. I'm a lot taller and in weight. So just make sure I use my size on that power based type of move set. The other one that I apply to outside is to take criticism, is to learn how to take criticism, because you get that a lot in wrestling. Sometimes it's constructive, sometimes it's not. So you have to really learn the difference between the two and kind of just know how to take it on the chin and just learn from it. And you can really take that from wrestling to outside of wrestling as well.
Yeah, definitely. And also in terms of using your power as an athlete, I can imagine like learning that had to be like an amazing journey and finding out all the things that your body can actually do.
Right, exactly. And it's always cool to go out there and like be the one like throwing around and everything like that. But it's sometimes for me it is difficult because like I love small wrestlers too because I realize like man I wish I could do that but I can't. Like I love Sasha Banks but she's so tiny, but I can't do like the things like Sasha Banks can do. So I'm like oh man.
Yeah, she's a tiny goat. Like
She is tiny.
she is my goat, but she's tiny from what I
Yeah.
can see. But the tiniest ones really, use that speed to their advantage, and
Right.
that's what I tend to love. But it's like the taller ones, like the bigger ones who are, bigger built, or like the really tall ones can use that power to
Yeah.
their advantage as well. So
Sure.
honestly, I just love it when all wrestlers are just all unique shapes and sizes and everything, because it's just like the real world. We're all different, right?
Exactly.
So we have to be able to utilize our strengths to our advantage. And then whatever people sort of see as weaknesses really might not even be weaknesses at all. So
Exactly. That's
definitely.
exactly true.
So you said, you basically, said, all the stuff that you went through with your training. Um, were there any obstacles that you faced as you started?
I would say my biggest obstacles, even still to this day, I get in my head a lot about things. Um, uh, yeah, I get in my head a lot. I think that's definitely the thing. Just making sure I have that confidence and I believe in myself. I definitely would say that's my biggest obstacle because there are things I would say over and over again, like you can't do, like in my head. And I'm just like, don't say that. And then like they make me do it, and then I do it. It's like in my head, like, why are you doing? Like, I do that to myself all the time, and it's just like, man, like that was my biggest obstacle is just me trying to get out of my head. Like, I am capable. I can do this. But sometimes, you know, in your head, you're just like, I don't know if I can. But like once you do it, then it's fine. That's the one thing I still have to like be in my own head, is that you can do it and you are able to do it. I would say that's my biggest obstacle, is that being in my head too much definitely would have to be my number one thing. And I still struggle sometimes, but I'm getting better about it.
Yeah, sometimes we can really be our own biggest opposition.
Yeah, that's
Like,
definitely true.
oh my gosh, like that's one of the biggest problems that I have in my own life, is that sometimes I get in my own head and start overthinking,
Hmm.
something that's just so natural, like anything. And sometimes it just sort of stops me from fully, channeling what it is about me that actually is, special and doesn't take that much work. But ultimately, once you do get out of your own head, you realize that what you were, stressing out about, or what you were, freaking out about, is actually something that's relatively simple. And
Exactly.
once you get it, you're just like, okay, well, I got it. But that's definitely a relatable problem, to have. And to anyone who's, going through that, who's listening to this and going through that, just know that, everything's okay. And that, once you take a deep breath and clear your mind, you can do anything. So,
Exactly. You can do anything. As long as you set your
mhm,
mind to it and you think you can do it, it'll be fine.
definitely. So, how has the independent wrestling scene sort of treated you since you've gotten started in this business?
I would say pretty good. When my first year of wrestling, when I actually started first taking like wrestling bookings,
Hmm.
I didn't wrestle that much. Arkansas isn't huge for like wrestling for women.
Really?
Yeah, not really, especially whenever I first started. So that's one of the things in my head, is that like I was afraid of getting out there and going to other places, like like getting in my head part, overthinking it.
Hmm.
I was afraid of doing that. So like my first year, I wrestled maybe like once every month and a half, 2 months or so, just because I didn't have anything to do. And then once I started going out, I definitely did start getting booked more. um, every show. And one thing I love about the indies is it's such a learning experience, because you don't have the same fans, you don't wrestle the same people. You can just learn how to like wrestle in front of different crowds. You can learn how to wrestle with different people. It's just such a huge learning experience, like all around. So that's one of the things that I really do love about the indies, is that no one show is the same, even if it's with the same company. The fans could be different. They bring in different wrestlers, different day, different weather. It makes people act different. You just never know with like the indies, because everything can just be different every show, and you just learn so much that way, I believe.
Yeah, like I feel like the indies are really great, sort of, I don't want to say a stepping stone, because some people, spend their whole careers,
Right.
in the independence. I don't want to use that, phrase at all, or disrespect the indies at all. But sometimes once you start there, from what I can see, it sort of prepares you a lot for a bigger platform, because you're able to perform, in various circumstances and in various cities, and that really does prepare you a lot, for your future, goals.
Right. Exactly. You just learn how to do pretty much get everything thrown at you. So whenever you like go to these other shows, or the ones on TV, you kind of just know how to work it.
Yeah, and everything's just kind of chill after that point. You're just like, okay, well, I did this. I can handle this,
Right.
you know.
Exactly.
So I imagine that has to be really cool. So,
Mhm.
um, how would you say, do you feel that you've built a fan base?
I would say so. I That's one of my favorite parts too about the indies, is just having to that connection with the fans. You get to go out during like intermission and get, or before the show, after the show, you get to hang out with the fans, say hello, really get to know people, because I still have people come up to me at shows and, hey, I remember seeing you at this show, seeing that show. I have one family that whenever I see them, I normally go to like Mississippi around there. They say, we drove 6 hours to see you. And I'm just like, stuff like that, like really like makes me feel so good, because it makes me feel like I'm doing something right sometimes anyway. If they drive that far to see me. Um, it's great. I love my fans. They definitely know how to show me love. and make me feel like I'm doing a good job.
That is so sweet that you have like a family that actually drives to see you.
Yeah, I love when they say that. Like, we came to see you, and I was like, oh, thank you.
Like there's
It's
so
really
many
my
people, but
favorite.
the fact that you resonate with people, I under, that has to be, a very touching thing.
Definitely.
Oh my gosh.
It makes me feel really good.
Like that reminds me of when I was at Alabama Comic Con this past weekend and I ran into someone who loves to comment on my clips on Facebook.
That's cool.
And actually meeting him was just like, oh my God, like it's you, like you're in front of my face.
It's you,
And
right?
yeah, and I was actually able to hug him and say hi. And then he even came for the panel that I was a part of with Burma Slam, which is a wrestling group here in Birmingham. And I
Oh,
was just,
no.
yeah, I was just so happy, to meet everyone and to talk to everyone and everything. But just the fact that I was able to meet people who actually listen to my show was just like, oh my God, like that's so great.
It's such a cool feeling.
Yeah, it's like once it's like they actually pay attention to me, like, and you actually want to see me, like, are you serious? Are you sure?
That's funny, of course. Yeah, that's funny.
Oh, it's so great. So, how would you say that the pandemic affected your career?
I would say it's pretty big. I was doing some really cool stuff before the pandemic. I did AEW, and then in February, and then I did Impact in um, March, and it kind of just after that it just like stopped for
Mhm.
a good while. I just saw on like Twitter the other day. So I stopped wrestling in March, and then in 2020 I didn't wrestle again until October. It was like October 6th. I had my first match back after the pandemic, and it was just like, man, I had a lot of cool stuff lined up that just had to be canceled, and it's sad to think about, but hopefully I can get my momentum back up and running. But it definitely put a damper on a lot of cool things that I had coming up. But hopefully we can get it back up.
Yeah, and it's looking like slowly but surely people are, opening back up and things in wrestling actually are, having shows and everything. So hopefully, once everything sort of gets situated and under control, everything will be fine. So
Right.
what did you do, in that time in which you weren't active?
You know, I was really just trying to stay safe for the most part. I couldn't really go to the gym. I was still working, thankfully. I still had my job. That's pretty much just what I was doing at that time. I was trying to think of different like character things as well. Because I always say with me, like my character is just me. I was trying to think of just different things that I can add to it. I got a couple new pairs of gear. I got a new pair of boots as well. I got my customized boots. So I was trying to get stuff started for whenever wrestling did come up. But for the most part, I did just try to stay safe and just working.
Okay. Well, that's a pretty, safe option there in
Yeah,
terms of working hard, but also at the same time being smart.
right,
So ultimately, that's all anyone can do at this point, because of course it's still going on, but at the same time, all anyone can do truly is just to stay safe and just do the best that they can. So
right.
it's good to know that you were actually able, to sort of keep working to a certain extent and figure stuff out. So you mentioned your character. So what was the inspiration behind it, if you don't mind, talking about that?
I stole, well, at least the golden one. I stole that from my friend Brandon. He came up with it for me.
Hmm.
Because my real name is Cassandra Golden. Everybody thinks it's like just a stage name, but no, that's my real name. So everybody thinks that. But my friend Brandon, he just came up with the golden one, Cassandra Golden, and I just stole it from him ever since. I give him credit. Like this time, I'm giving him credit for it, but I've just always used that. I had a name before, I used to go by Aria Alexander, like when I first started.
Hmm.
And everybody was like, why are you using that name? Like, your real name is so much better than that. And so I was like, ugh. It took a lot of convincing because I wanted to have a secondary name. You know, like Beyonce, Sasha Fierce? That's what I
Yeah.
wanted. And everyone's like, no, like, what are you doing? You gotta just use your real name. So I did. I ended up using my real name, and I stole the Golden One moniker from my friend Brandon. So that's how I came up with that.
I mean, I think that's a cool, name to use. And just the idea that that's your actual name works well,
Yeah.
because you won't have to change anything and you don't have to do so many extra things like I'm assuming maybe a lot of wrestlers or a lot of people have to do, to sort of do their name thing. And
Yeah.
what's so cool about that is it's like there are so many people in wrestling, myself included, who have like names that are just iconic. And honestly, Golden, Cassandra Golden is just something that people always remember.
Yeah.
Like literally, like who's gonna forget that?
Yes, that's true.
Like no one is gonna forget that at all. And the fact that it's real is just awesome. Like, and then with my name, it's just, even though my name is sort of on my podcast and everything, it's just there's the Hardy Boys, and then there's the
Right.
fact that there's Stephanie McMahon,
Right.
and there's just so many of us, like Kiera Hogan, in her name.
Right.
Like there's just so many of us who have, cool names and stuff. So
You
I
just love
feel like, yeah, I feel like that just adds to the list of amazing names in wrestling. Like
Thanks.
it works.
Yeah.
So, did anybody give you a hard time because your last name was Golden, like when you were growing up?
Oh my gosh. So yes. I used to ride the bus. I'm sure you know like this song Golden by Jill Scott.
Oh yeah,
So I
that's
used
my
to ride
jam.
the bus, and whenever I would get off the bus, I would have a group of kids yell, scream, sing that song out through the windows as I was getting off and like walking to my house. It was so embarrassing. But I mean, now it's funny. But at the time, I didn't think it was funny. I was very shy. I'm still a shy person, so I didn't like all that attention on me. So everybody would always sing
Oh.
that. I was just like, it's so embarrassing. But now it's funny. But back then, I was just like, ugh, so embarrassing. But I would get that a lot. Of course, me and my sister, everybody would call us just the Golden Girls, or like sing like the theme song and stuff like that. So it's just mostly those things that we would normally like get from people.
See, it's so funny that you said that you were shy and you really didn't like all that attention. So I
Mm-hmm.
completely understand, that sort of, reservedness, because my boyfriend is actually like that too. He's very introverted as well. He doesn't really like that much attention either.
Yeah.
So I totally understand, where you're coming from with that. But I
Right.
just know for me, like I probably would have embraced it after a while and just would have been like, yes. Like
I wish. I
Jill
wish.
is singing about me.
That would have been perfect.
Like Jill is singing about me. I'm
Right.
a golden girl. Like I would have, like that's just what I would have done just to take the attention off, just to make it fun for me. Cause
Yeah.
yeah, because it's just like that's just my thing. It's just like I have a tendency to just be extra anyway. It's just like how Beyonce, me and Beyonce have the same birthday.
Oh,
Like
that's cool.
yeah, I seriously feed into that all the time. Like
That's
it's just
good.
like it's me and her, and then there's Xavier Woods and Awesome Kong as well.
Oh wow, that's really cool.
Yeah, and Cardi B's new baby. Like, like
Really.
it's just all
That's
of us on
cool.
September the
You
4th,
share
and it's
some.
just it's iconic. And because I embrace that, it's just like I just be like, "Yup, we're Virgos. We're up in here. We rule
Right.
everything."
That's
So
funny. That's cool. You share both of them. That's really cool.
oh my god, yeah, it's a whole thing. Like I just love it so much. So,
Yeah.
and then I also used to say that the Hardy Boys are like my brothers from
Did
another
you?
mother.
That's so funny.
Like I embrace that. Like I absolutely embrace that. Like when I'm in wrestling spaces and they be like Hardy, like the Hardy Boys, I'm like, yup,
Right. Right.
exactly, just
Right.
like them. I'm not extreme though, but it's just
Not
like them.
extreme. You got to get extreme then. The next
Extreme
kind
how
of the
though?
swanton bomb off the table.
Oh my god, no. I would fall and hurt myself. I'm not athletic at all. Like it's like I'm athletic enough to work out at the gym, but not enough to jump off of things.
Me too. Yeah, you're good. You're good.
Yeah, when they say don't try this at home, I take it seriously. No. No. I can't. No.
Right. I feel you.
Oh, so what are some hobbies of yours that you like to do outside of wrestling?
I'm a homebody. A lot of the time, I love The Sims.
Mm-hmm.
I love playing The Sims. I've been getting back into reading. I like to watch. I like to watch TV too. Just watching. I like to watch wrestling too, of course. I like to eat. at new restaurants, and like, or not even new restaurants. I like to eat too at my favorite restaurants. I need. Oh, I didn't get that question. It's like I need hobbies. I need things to do because, like I said, I just like to chill out at my house. If I'm not wrestling, I like to chill out. I like to watch my wrestling, play my Sims. I go to the gym too. I don't really consider that a hobby or more something I have to do, I guess. But I always say any new hobbies whenever somebody asks me, "What are your hobbies?" Because I just like to like chill out all the times. I'm boring. I'm a boring person.
That's not boring. That's not boring at all. I just think that's very comfortable, you know?
Yeah, I am. I like my space. Me and my dog. I like hanging out with my dog too, Winston.
Yeah.
He stopped barking, so that's good.
Okay, what's your dog's name?
Winston.
Winston.
Yay. He's a Shih Tzu. He's very cute. He's sharing him on my page. I'd show him, but he needs a haircut, so I don't want to do that to him.
Oh, yeah, it's okay. It's okay.
If he did have a haircut, I would definitely put him up here because he's cute. I still think he's cute, but I don't want people to judge him for his haircut.
Oh, no, I would never judge him. Shout out to Winston. We love you. We love dogs.
He's back. He said hello. Do you have a dog?
No, I don't. It was my dog story is pretty insane. I didn't grow up with pets, so anytime I would see dogs, I would get scared immediately.
Oh no.
And I didn't start fully embracing dogs until me and my boyfriend got together because he had 2 pets and then now he has 2 newer pets. So once I started being with him, we've been together for years now. So it's just like now me being around dogs is normal. Like I can see dogs out in public, in the park now. And if their owner says I can, pet them and say hi, then I'm okay with that.
Oh, that's nice. Well, that's good. Dogs are the best. I love dogs.
Yeah, like it took a while though. It was a long process. But once I did, and now I love them.
That's good.
I absolutely love them now, but it was a long process. It was a lot of growth on my part, but we grew and here we are.
Here we are. We loving dogs now. That's all that matters.
Yes, definitely. Like I want like maybe 2 or 3.
Oh wow.
Or maybe if we just have one, like if me and my boyfriend live together, we just have one. I mean, that's fine. 2. Just either way, I just want some.
Just want something. I was wanting to get another one so he can have like a little friend too, but they're a lot of work. I want a puppy, and puppies are a lot of work. So I was like, I don't know. I was thinking about it because I kind of do want 2 of them, but I don't know.
Yeah, puppies are a lot of work, but essentially, I just think of them as kids. Honestly, I just feel like dogs are ultimately like just humans in animals' bodies.
Right.
Like,
I believe that. Yeah.
They're very high maintenance, but once you love them, it's like you'll do whatever it is to protect them and take care of them and everything.
Definitely a dog mom, yeah, because they become your babies.
Yes.
Definitely.
Yes, and I embrace that now. So it's just I get it. I totally at first I didn't, but now I do, and it's just like, yeah. I totally get it. Right. So if I don't have biological kids, I'll have dogs.
Exactly. Me too.
Yep, and that's good. So who has been your favorite opponent to face so far?
My favorite opponent, let's see. My favorite, I love wrestling Erica Torres. I think she's very talented, very strong, very good. I've loved every match that me and Erica have had. We've had a couple. I've loved everyone. Another one I would have to say is Cameron Bernay. She signed now, actually. Amari Miller in NXT. She's doing great things. She was always also one of my favorite people to wrestle as well. So those are, I would say, my 2 that I can think of like right now. I would have to say. I feel bad if I missed somebody. Like, why didn't you say me? Just kidding. But off the top of my head, those are definitely 2 of my favorites. I would have to say.
Okay, and then the fact that one of them's on NXT now, that's cool.
Very cool. Yeah, it's so crazy because I remember like wrestling. It's just crazy when you see people like that you actually like know and they have made it. And I'm so proud of her. She's doing really great things.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel whenever I see people on AEW that I know. It's just like, oh my God, there you are.
Getting
Or on
something for him.
Impact or NWA, it just freaks me out. It's just like, oh my God, here they are.
Right. He's
It's
like,
so wonderful.
it is. It's a great feeling.
So, do you have any dream opponents?
Dream opponents. Like I said, I love Sasha Banks. I would love to wrestle Sasha Banks one day. I would also love to wrestle Bianca Belair. I love
Mhm.
Bianca too. Those are my two girls. Um, I like to wrestle Charlotte too. I think Charlotte's really good. Um, who else? Jazz. I would love to wrestle Jazz and
Oh God.
Victoria. Those are like my two favorites from like whenever I first started was Jazz and Victoria. I love them. Trish and Lita are great too, but I love me some Jazz and Victoria. Those are my favorites right there. Um, so those are definitely a couple of my dream matches. If I could just pick anything, or a tag team or an intergender match versus The Rock. I think that would be
Ooh.
cool. I love The Rock. Too. I think that would be cool. Maybe that'd be cool. That'd be really cool. I love The Rock. He's like one of my favorites too.
Yeah, The Rock is actually my favorite male wrestler of all time.
He's amazing.
He's
He's amazing.
absolutely amazing. Do you feel, well, since you brought The Rock up, do you feel like there's ever a point in which he'll actually come back to wrestling?
I totally can see him coming back versus Roman Reigns. Like one day, I can see that. Like not like for good, but for our program, I can definitely see him coming back. I would love that actually, especially with Roman Reigns currently doing about head of the table and everything like that. I can definitely see like The Rock coming back and like I'm the real head of the table, something like that. You know, I can totally see that. That'd be cool. I'd love for that to happen.
Yeah, that's my biggest theory. Like, okay, so online there are a couple of people who have come up with the theory that they feel like The Rock could come back for a Survivor Series next month
I've seen that.
because this year would be his 25th year, since he debuted
Yeah. Oh yeah.
at Survivor Series. And a lot of people really are under the impression that since nobody else as of yet has beaten Roman Reigns, and stuff like that, they feel like maybe he, would come back and, assert himself as the real head of the table with the whole Samoan family dynasty.
Right.
And then or they would spread it out, and stretch it out, after the Royal Rumble into WrestleMania next year, which would
Yeah.
be perfect for me because I want to go. And and then to be able to see that iconic of a match, like it's just like the two, it's like you have the iconic Rock, who's just one of like who's growing to be like a legend, and then you have Roman Reigns, who's probably one of the most polarizing superstars of our time.
Right.
Like it would just be insane levels of awesomeness.
I can definitely see that, especially for like WrestleMania. That's what I'm banking on. I'm banking on WrestleMania.
Yeah, but
That's
then
what
a
I
lot
hope.
of
Anyway, hoping.
yeah, and then a lot of people think they might stretch it out and then wait till WrestleMania the year after next because it's in California. And I hope they don't just wait till California to do it. Like, come on, no. Do it in Texas. Do it in Texas. Cause
Okay, so that's the one I saw. I actually saw that today about the one in LA. I
Mhm.
wasn't sure which one that actually was. So because it's in Dallas this year or
Yeah,
this
it's in
year.
Dallas next year.
Okay,
And
in
then the
LA
year
the year.
afterward it's LA. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
Like either way, I don't want them to just do it in LA. I want them to do it in Texas because I know for
Right.
sure I'm going to Texas.
That's cool. That's
Oh
cool.
my gosh. I just cannot wait. But and then you also mentioned how your two of your dream opponents were Sasha Banks and Bianca Belair. Of course, they are stellar representations of black women in wrestling, especially with their historic match that they had at WrestleMania, being the first two black women to ever main event WrestleMania.
Right.
So, how important is it to you to be a representation of black girl magic in wrestling?
I like normally like on the indies I am a good guy and I love that because I love that I can be a good positive role model for the little girls. I love whenever the kids, especially the little girls, come up to me and then they just want to take pictures and just say hello or even just like stand. A lot of them just stand by my table. If they don't have anything to say, they just like stand by my table. I'm like, okay, that's cool too. I love that. It makes me feel so good because it's always nice just to see and have that representation just so, hey, this person did it, I can do it too. And just to be that positive role model um, is, I don't know, it's amazing feeling. It's definitely amazing to be a part of that whole group of amazing Black women in women's wrestling.
Yeah, definitely. And I know from my perspective as a fan, but slash budding professional, it feels amazing to see that type of representation in the independents as well, because you have girls like you and girls like Karen Bam Bam and the Woad and so many different black women who just do amazing things, and then also on a mainstream level as well. It sort of makes your heart swell as a fan to sort of see that, and then to have them put on this level of, yeah, these women are amazing and they're black women too. And and it just makes me feel really good inside. It makes me feel like I'm unstoppable and there's nothing that I can't do.
Exactly. You can do
Yeah.
anything.
Yeah, it's like I know I'm not an athlete, but the confidence that you guys have, it helps me and it inspires me to apply that same confidence as I go out into the world and do what I do.
Yeah. That's good.
I know that's a very mushy thing to say, but
No, it's awesome. I
that's
definitely
real.
understand. I was like, I definitely understand where you're coming from. You can definitely like gain confidence just from other people, seeing what they're doing. Like with what they're doing seems amazing. It makes you feel like, hey, I can do something amazing too. I can also go follow my dreams as well. So I definitely get that.
Yeah, definitely. And also shout out to the other to other women of color, especially black women in
Exactly.
podcasting as well, who
Yeah.
do amazing jobs and inspire me too, because I'm still new. So thank you guys for doing what you guys do.
Yes. Thank you.
So yes. So since I met you at the Belladonna Division show Genesis 2,
Mhm.
how did it feel to be on an all women show?
It was an amazing feeling. I love being on all women shows, especially that one. Like the amount of talent in that locker room that day was
Yeah.
crazy. We had so many amazing women backstage, and it just makes you feel good. Like when you're surrounded by all that talent, it just gives you like a swell of confidence that like you're doing something good, that you're able to be in this locker room, you're able to have a good match with an amazing opponent. I wrestled Maserati. She's amazing. She's so talented herself. Another black woman in wrestling who I was so excited to wrestle her beforehand. I
Hmm.
texted my boyfriend and I was like, oh my God, guess what? I get to wrestle. I was so excited because she's so talented. And it was just an amazing feeling just being back there surrounded by so many women. And like we were just talking, there were also so many women of color on that show as well. Um, just, it was amazing. I loved it. And that's one thing about the Belladonna division as well. I feel like they like to bring in a lot of great people. So a shout out to Casey and Monica for that, for sure.
Yeah, definitely shout out to them because
Mm-hmm.
honestly, like it blows my mind to even be back there with you guys, because I'm not, now of course I'm not a wrestler, I'm a commentator. But at the same time, just being back there with you guys, it's like I sort of see you all as super women. So it's just like just being back there and just feeling that energy, and just being able to call you guys' action, and this was my second time doing it. It just felt amazing to be back there with so many women, who are either just starting out or have been doing it for years and all of that. And it's just amazing. And I'm so happy that Casey and Veronica both, allowed me to be a part of that twice. And hopefully a third time, definitely. But I'm just really excited to be a part of something so historic here in my home state too. Like,
Right.
yeah, our home state, because me, Casey, and Veronica, all three of us are from Alabama.
From Alabama.
Yeah, so the idea that something like this is happening, in my own backyard, that just means the world to me to even be a part of it and to call you guys' action and make you guys look good.
Right,
So
exactly. You
it,
did a great job. I've told you this before already, but you did an amazing job.
thank
I'm
you
sure you'll
so
be
much.
there in January too.
Yeah. Oh gosh,
Yeah,
it's gonna be great. I feel
yeah,
it in my
prepare.
bones. I'm so excited.
Yeah, it'll be a great show.
Yes. So I did see you did mention earlier that you had been on AEW, and when I look back, you had faced Hikaru Shida. What was
Hmm.
that experience like, and how did you get that opportunity?
So the experience itself was amazing. She's so sweet. She's very nice. She let me do a lot. Like I was able to do a lot in the match. I was able to learn a lot. It was really like my first time like on TV or anything like TV. It was on YouTube, but it still had like the same principles as like hard cam and things like that. So I had a lot to learn. I've never done anything like that before.
Mm-hmm.
And like embarrassing story about that too is whenever I first came out, I don't know what was going on in my head about my entrance, because normally you're used to the extras or enhancement not getting like an entrance. But
Right.
seeing Dark plenty of times, I know that they get entrances. But in my head, I was like, this is not gonna be on TV. I'm walking down and I look so nervous. And I'm just like, oh my gosh. And it's like so embarrassing. I look back on it and I was like, why did I do that? It was just like the worst. I was terrified, but I mean, I shouldn't have shown that because but I was like, oh, I won't be on TV. I'll be fine. But because it's funny because when I did Impact, I actually had I didn't have a full entrance, but I came out there like I was going to do my full entrance anyway, and it wasn't shown, but it was shown to the people and the fans. That's what I should have done for AEW instead of just walking down nervous. But I mean, they made a story out of it a little bit, so I guess it's fine.
Yeah. But who did you fight on Impact though?
Kylie Ray.
Oh, okay, cool.
Yeah.
She's great.
Yeah, she is. She's amazing. It was actually her debut match
Oh
when
wow.
she signed to Impact.
Okay, cool. So basically, having those opportunities, I imagine, even though, it was a little nerve-wracking for you, it was still good to have, and I'm glad that you were with people who took care of you.
Yes. Everybody, they both are amazing. So sweet, too. Like, they're so kind. Kylie is just how she portrays on TV. It's not an act. That's really who she is. She's just a sweet person. And so was Sheeta. She was also very sweet, very kind, very willing to help, and really kind of just wanted us both to look good. So I definitely thank them both.
Yeah, so how did those opportunities, come for you? Like, did someone call you, or did you get like a pop on your DMs, or what happened?
Yeah, I just got messaged and seeing if I was available for those days, and I just came on down.
Okay, cool. Well, I'm glad you had that opportunity, and hopefully, at some point you'll be back, or maybe you'll be a knockout, or
Hopefully.
maybe, or maybe you'll be on AEW or something like that.
Hopefully.
Yeah. So, how do you feel about the state of women's wrestling? In your opinion, what's happening that's really good for women's wrestling, and what could be improved on?
I am, I've been very lucky to be wrestling now in this time to where we get so much more time or mainstream visibility. And now there's just so many women's wrestlers. There's so many of us now. It's just a great time that we actually go out there and show what we can do. It's not just like bra and panties matches, and it's not just these 1-2 minute matches all the time. Sometimes it is, but now we actually get a chance to show like what we can do. Like we're athletes. We can do this too. We can do this just as well, sometimes even better than the guys. So it's great that we're now getting a chance to show it, because the women back then were great too. They just didn't have the opportunity always to show what they can do. And I think that's the biggest difference, is that now that everybody knows the women are great, so you just want to show. And there's so many people advocating for the women too nowadays. It's like, especially on Twitter, if they see a really short match, we're going to call it out like that.
Yes.
Seeing things being called out. And it's just great to have that support system. And everybody loves women's wrestling and wants it to be better. And people aren't letting it slide as much as they used to about short matches, about like match stipulations. Even with some companies calling it not just like divas or whatever, superstars. It's just things like that. One thing that I think can be changed is, if it's not an all-women show, a lot of the time there is just one women's match per show, especially on the independent scene. Some shows, they will allow multiple matches for women, but a lot of the times it's really just the one. If it's not an all-women show, mainly it's just going to be one, because a lot of the times on my shows that I'm on, I'm like the only women's match, and I feel like that's something that should change, because women, their draw is too. People want to come out and they want to see the women, but there's only one show on there. And so I think that's something that can really be improved, is the amount of women's matches on the shows.
Yeah, definitely. Because women's wrestling seriously draws. And I feel like a lot of people underestimate that because they subscribe to an older way of thinking in terms of
Mhm.
wrestling, which they think is more traditional, but in actuality is not traditional. It's just a little bit behind the curve.
Right,
And to be quite honest, women's wrestling really does, put butts in seats, and it sells tickets because you saw with events like Evolution and like with the Belladonna division, and also Empower that NWA had a couple months
yeah,
ago. Like people came in flocks to see that,
right,
to see an all female show. So if you give them the right opportunity and if you give women the right time and the right stories, the people will come, and you just have
right,
to trust that. You have to be able to have an open mind enough to trust that. And I 100% agree with you with that.
right, exactly. We just need the time, the opportunity, and we're gonna show out.
Always.
Always.
So if given the opportunity, would you sign with a major mainstream promotion?
I definitely would. Um, I definitely would. It just depends on if the opportunity and everything is right, but I definitely wouldn't rule anything out, for sure. I'd love to.
Okay. Do you have a preference?
Not really. I just love to
Okay.
wrestle. I would love to get paid to wrestle. That's my main goal, is just to wrestle. I have a 9 to 5 job. If I have to do just the like independence too, even if I don't get signed, if I can make enough money just from the independent scene, I would love that as well. I just love to wrestle, and I just want to wrestle and just have that to be, my main job. But just anywhere. I think everywhere right now is doing, at least trying to do great things with their women's division. Like WWE with NXT is amazing. They have an amazing women's division down there in NXT. Even the girls like on the main roster, they're great too. AEW is doing great things with their women. Even got that secondary title. Of course,
Mhm.
Impact is always done right by their women. They've always had an amazing roster, an amazing talent down there. NWA, of course, like we just said. MLW is even having their women's division that's starting up with some really cool matches. So it's just great time to be a women's wrestler. I'd really just go anywhere. I think everywhere has their positives to it.
Yeah, definitely. Like there's like a huge smorgasbord of places to go and choose. So, the world is your oyster. So I totally get it. So who would you say are your top five favorite wrestlers of all time?
Oof,
I know it's a hard
it's
question.
hard. Let's see. Of all time, of course, I'm gonna have to say The Rock first.
Mm-hmm.
The Rock. Ooh, this is so hard. It's so crazy. I've never like thought about like ranking them.
Mm-hmm.
Um, or like in a list. I love The Rock. I love Sasha Banks. She's definitely one of my all time favorites. I love her. Her and Bailey. That's like one of their feud in NXT is one of the moments that solidified I'm doing this. So Sasha Banks for sure. Let's see who else. Eddie Guerrero.
Mm-hmm.
I would say one of my top five. I love Stone Cold too. Definitely one of my top five. And
Mm-hmm.
then I would have to say I love jazz. So just overall encompassing who I love to watch and inspired, and I would say that like that five. There's so many factors. Like they have that like debate on the Mount Rushmore of like wrestling. They have like there should
Yes.
be like different like subsects of like the Mount Rushmore. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
that should be like mine too. Everybody's top five. You have top five like technical, like all time entertainer, and it's just like hard. But I would say like that together, I would have to say like my quick five. I would have to say. Don't nobody needs to judge my choices.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's gonna judge your choices. Your choices are pretty solid ones. Like
Yeah.
you can't really argue with either one of those choices. So I mean, no one's gonna judge you. I mean, a lot of those favorites are some of my favorites too.
Hmm.
And also when it comes to Sasha and Bailey, like I was obsessed with them. Like I was so obsessed with them after I saw that match at Takeover Brooklyn
Yeah,
that I was just obsessed with them. And even when they came up to the main roster, I was just waiting for them to have the opportunity to fight each other like that again. And once
right.
they did, it was good.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like if I ever
They're
like
just
find
so
myself
good.
down and like needing motivation, that's one of the matches I go to. Because like that's one of the things I was like, hey, I got to do this because it's just that feeling that you get. Like you just want to like rehab, keep that feeling of like loving wrestling. It was just a big moment, so it's definitely one of my matches I go to if I'm needing like some remotivation or anything like that.
Yeah, I would argue that that's probably the greatest women's wrestling match of all time.
Hmm. Yeah,
Like I can argue, I'm pretty sure there are other ones, but that's really like that has to be in the top 5.
yeah, no doubt for sure.
Has to.
It has to be
If
exactly.
it's not, then I question the credibility of your list.
Right. Exactly.
I
I agree with
question the
that. It
credibility
has to
of it.
be. It has to be.
Seriously.
Hmm.
All right. So what would you say are some of the greatest things that wrestling has given you on a personal level?
Man, on a personal level, I would have to say confidence is one. It's definitely helped me grow my confidence. Like I said, I still struggle with it, but it is miles above what it used to be. That's one thing for sure. Me like I guess that goes into like me believing in myself as well. That I can do things. And like I said, all the time, I used to say, no, I can't do that. And then I do it and then I can. I'll say that's definitely one thing as well. Me getting out of my comfort zone. Like I said earlier in the interview, like I'm very, I'm kind of reserved. I'm still very shy, but I'm able to go out there and just do things that I never thought that I could do. Even like talking to people, I'm not a big talker to people, but that's really part of the job. So I just have to go out there and try to be my best extroverted self. I'm learning that as well. So I would say those are the top things that wrestling has really taught me. And I'm really appreciative for it because I probably never would have learned those lessons had it not been for wrestling.
Definitely, I get that. So
Mhm.
what would you say the future holds for you?
I don't, hopefully great things. Well, no, not even hopefully. It holds great things for me. Um, I'm just excited to take things one day at a time and just to see where it goes. That's another thing it taught me. I'm normally like very everything has to be planned out, but now with wrestling, you kind of everything's not on me. I have to kind of just go with the flow of things. But I do see great things hopefully in my future, and let's go from there.
Yeah, definitely. It's so funny you said that wrestling is kind of a thing where you have to learn to go with the flow.
Hmm.
That's hard for me too because I was growing up like I was always like the type of person who had a plan for this,
Yeah,
this, 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 this. And life and wrestling, or at least being a part of it now, has taught me that it doesn't go the way you plan for it to go
that's true.
most of the time, but the way that it turns out isn't necessarily the worst thing either.
Exactly.
Like sometimes it pans out just how you need it to pan out and
Right.
not how you expect it to.
Right. Exactly. That's a really good way to put it.
Yeah,
It goes
definitely.
completely left. I'm just kidding. You just gotta go with it. You gotta learn how to like think on your feet. You gotta just learn how to, you know,
Adapt.
adapt. Exactly. You gotta learn how to adapt. Yeah.
Yes, definitely.
Hmm.
Well, Cassandra Golden, thank you so much for coming on the Hardy Wrestling Podcast.
Thank you for
Now,
having me.
yes, now, of course, this is your time to tell people where they can find you on social media and anything else you've got going on and stuff.
Okay. Well, depending on when this will be out, I actually have a match on Saturday in Natchez, Mississippi. I'll be wrestling Amber Rodriguez with BIW Wrestling or Bayou Independent Wrestling. I'll be there on Saturday. Come check it out. For my social medias, you can reach me at _ Cassandra Golden _ on Instagram, and my Twitter and my Facebook are just at Cassandra Golden. Also have a big cartel where you can pick up shirts like these ones. It's like my favorite one, my little Bratz inspired t-shirt design. And I also have pictures and everything on there as well. So you can hit up those places to, send me a message, talk to me, order some merch, support your girl.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, and I wish nothing but continued success for you. And also, just the fact that you're fighting Amber Rodriguez, she's a guest. She's a past guest
Yeah.
on my show as well. Like, oh my gosh, I love her too. So
Yes.
good luck in your match
Thank you.
this weekend, and
Thank
just thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yes, definitely.